What is up, everybody? Happy Sunday evening. Welcome to Talking Ball, y'all. I am Cass Hargis. That is Jason Dewey and Lance Lacoste, and we're halfway through the football season already. It's crazy. It's crazy. It's like you're so excited to get started, and then you blink and you're 5 weeks in. We've got a heck of a show tonight. I know if y'all joined us on Tuesday, we talked to Coach Valdez from St. Aug to preview their matchup with Carr, and that game was, kind of as advertised. But if you're gonna upend the Carr St. Aug game for the game in a week, you've got to do it by scoring on the last play of the game, right? That's the only way that happens, and that takes us to St. Charles at St. James. St. James wins 34-28. It was a wild game. St. Charles makes a comeback to get back into it. St. James scores on the last play of the game. I know, Jason, you had a front row seat to the game. Why don't you tell us what happened on that down at St. James?
So, the entire game, it was a game of momentum. St. Charles really came out and dominated the game early, 3 and out to start the game defensively. They were doing exactly what they wanted to do, dictating the pace, running the football effectively. They go up 14-0 at one point, and we know how explosive that St. James offense is. You have Juwan Jackson, who's the sophomore quarterback, another in the line legacy of incredible St. James quarterbacks. You also have Kanye Zenon, who really stepped up in this game. Young man at wide receiver. They connect at the end of the first half, and you're thinking going into the half, me and Coach Frank Monica were talking, and my big thing was St. Charles playing the game they want to. You're thinking physical football, those body blows are going to kind of add up in the second half. The exact opposite happened. But really what it boiled down to is that the key play was it was 14-6. St. Charles had once again forced a punt, and their aggressive special teams nature actually went against them. St. James had a few injuries. They had a backup punter in, backup kicker in. They snapped the punt. It rolls on the ground. And what that does, that pulls the end out of position on the punt block. So they end up sprinting for about 40 yards on a fourth down, completely changed the momentum of the game. St. James scores 21 unanswered in the second half. They feel like all is fine. They make 2 crucial special teams mistakes on back-to-back drives. They kick it to Kristen McLean, who is an incredible return man for St. Charles. He returns at 80-plus yards for a touchdown. And the next drive, they decide they're going to stay. St. Charles had been sky kicking it to stay away from Jacai's Villanova. And St. James said, we want to get him a return. So they moved him to that spot on the sky kick. Well, St. Charles puts it in the back. It lands on the 5-yard line, and they got to return it. So that forces a punt. St. Charles blocks it. They score, tie ball game. And St. James then has the ball near the end of the game. They have 3 penalties on major plays. One was a touchdown. 2 were touchdowns. They had 2 touchdowns called off the board. It kind of forced the situation at the end. And it was a man-on-man matchup, a play they'd already gone through earlier with seconds remaining. Jackson to Villanova in the corner of the end zone on a ball that was batted down and then gotten under and caught. It was a phenomenal game, phenomenal atmosphere. St. James, one of my favorite places to call games. Great people, great environment, and it lived up to the billing. River Parish football, we know we talk about the Catholic League a lot, but when you have a River Parish matchup, it's full-on communities. The community is shut down. Guys, I'm in Vacherie, Louisiana, and I have traffic leaving the stadium. I was in traffic for 30 minutes leaving that stadium. So there's nothing like small-town atmosphere in a game like that with a beautiful stadium, beautiful setting, but an incredible win for that St. James team to battle the way that they did.
The highlights from this game were just incredible. I can't even imagine what it was like in person, but it looked like the atmosphere was electric, like you said. The kid Villanueva was unbelievable. It looked like he had a ton of catches, and then he makes the huge catch, like you said, at the end of the game, which was just like the most amazing concentration that this ball got knocked up in the air. He's on his back and still comes up with the catch. And so, yeah, man, that looked like an incredible game. That I know you had a great call at the end of it as well. So.
Tried. The problem is, guys,
how could you tell if you even caught it?
Well, that's the problem, right? So you have to suspend your reaction. And when I'm looking in the corner of the end zone, it's like I'm seeing the play and I'm like, oh, he swatted it. We're going to overtime. But you look at the sideline and they're going to static. And I'm like, wait a second, I missed something. So I had to pause and wait. And then I had to wait till the official called it. But, man, I was at a loss for words at a certain point there. But it was a phenomenal game to watch.
Yeah, it looked like Coach Levante Davis's post-game, quote basically said that, he was a little disappointed in the way they finished the game, but anytime you beat St. Charles Catholic, I mean, it's a huge win for the program. And so, just a relief while also having to be in that coaching moment of like, we got to finish better than this, no matter who we're playing, right?
That's a low-key – that's kind of a low-key rivalry. These are two teams that have been playing for years. If you go all the way back to 2005, these are two teams that played 4 times in 2 years, once in the second round of the playoffs, which a game ended. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the name Luther Ambrose, but he beat only Joe McKnight in the 100 meters, the fastest guy in the state. St. Charles makes a stupid penalty on the final play of the game. They get one untimed down. They run a reverse. This is in the second round of the playoffs after St. James beat them in the regular season. And a young man on St. Charles' team gets knocked down, gets up, and makes him click his heels on the 2-yard line. St. Charles comes back the next year, again loses the regular season, and beats them in the semifinals to go to the state championship to play John Curtis. So, and that's back when it was Coach Monica and Coach Rick Gailey, who is a legend. Coach Gailey was a phenomenal piece of that place too. But this is a series that dates back a good bit of time, and always a fun matchup.
It's like the best of Louisiana football. When you talk about the small town, you're driving into St. James and like it's nothing but sugarcane fields, and then you just see 4 lights lit up, and you pull into the stadium. But yeah, what Coach Levante Davis said at St. James, it kind of like threads that needle of exactly what you want as a coach. You want to win the game, but you also have some stuff to talk to your team about to get better at. And I think if you're St. Charles, had the way this game gone with the way there were the momentum swings, and then you lose the game. Maybe last year, I don't know if that team handles it because they were so young and inexperienced. But this year, those guys have been there, done that. Obviously, you don't want to lose the game, but I think they're going to be just fine moving forward with Coach Stein and that crew. Speaking of atmospheres, y'all saw the picture outside of the Carr St. Aug game. This was like 2 hours before the game, and it looked like the entire city of New Orleans was waiting to get into Bourbon Stadium. Carr wins the game 42-21. Carr's quarterback, John Johnson, he accounts for all 5 of Carr's offensive touchdowns. That guy's just unbelievable. He throws for 342 yards, throws 3 touchdowns, rushes for 2 touchdowns. I don't know that coming out of the game, I don't know that we learned anything that we didn't already know about either team. I think St. Aug did kind of what we expected. They played well. I know you lose 42-21. You say you play well. It's probably not doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But when you consider who they played, Carr looked like they were explosive defensively. They were all over the field. But St. Aug kind of showed themselves well. And I think, man, I know we're at least 5 weeks away from this, but to see a rematch of these two teams in the playoffs would be awesome.
Yeah, I think I would agree. I mean, it went pretty much exactly as I predicted, but St. Aug stayed within 14 points of this game. It looked like throughout the game it was a 14-point game at halftime. Even into the third quarter, it was 35-21, I believe, at one point before maybe Carr put it away. But they hung in there, so kudos to Coach Valdez and those guys. As far as Carr, like they can beat you in so many ways. I think the more I learn about this team, maybe the most underrated strength of this team is that offensive line. Yeah. Like they keep such a clean pocket for one of the best quarterbacks in Louisiana, John Johnson, and then they can run the football too. It's like they are really good offensive line. That's so big and long too. I mean, it's just they make it just that much tougher, But yeah, I mean, I think on the St. Aug side, Coulon, pretty impressive that he can have that type of day versus this defense. I'm sure he was dealing with pressure all night, but he was 14-28, 256 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. So, that kid there, Vashon Coulon, pretty impressive day considering the opponent he went against.
Yeah, and one thing to keep in mind is when you look at the score, 7 of those points were from a pick six, Dyer Gilmore. And it just speaks to it's so hard to say, well, this is an underrated piece of Carr's team. This team might be, I mean, there's no weakness. There's no weakness, and it's really difficult to sit here and strategize against any team when you're saying, well, all right, let's try to attack. Let's set up the pass with the run. Okay, let's lock down Trey Garrison and ran for a $120. Oh, wait, but what about John Johnson? What about the 3 receivers that he hit for touchdowns against St. Aug? And again, there's, 4 or 5 guys deep at receiver that they can go to. Anthony Thomas, Greg Wilfred. As I mentioned, he transferred in from Destrehan. He's really been having a solid season, over 100 yards in this game. And then Xavier Owens, the kid who comes in from California, who's been lighting the team on fire. Richard Anderson up front defensively. You got Aiden Hall in the secondary. We can continue to go on and on. But this team is just so difficult to beat because how are you going to attack them offensively? Are you going to attack them with their 4 stud defensive backs? Are you going to run the ball at this defensive front that is led by LSU commit Richard Anderson along with Romeo Brown and crew, who are just as talented, or the linebackers who, you don't talk about underrated, the guys who might have the least amount of notoriety in terms of offers and stars, and they are some of the fastest players on the field. They're running backs playing linebacker. And it's very difficult to find any weakness. Hats off to St. Aug for being the first team in Louisiana to put a touchdown on the board against them. We know that they have offensive weapons. They're extremely talented. Keith Hill, their running back, was out during this game. So that might have impacted a little bit how they wanted to attack this defense. But I don't really know how much that would have impacted the game. And we won't know until we hopefully get to see these teams play a second time around. But we all know it's really difficult to beat a team 2 times, no matter who you are, regardless if you are Carr or not. But again, Carr has not lost a football game in,
18. They won 18 straight.
18 games. And it's going to be very difficult for somebody to put an end to that as of right now, the way they look.
Yeah, no, it's to beat them, you have to, you've got to be talented enough, but everything has to go perfect for you, and you've got to hope that they play their C game, and then hope that a few bounces go your way. But the atmosphere at this place, there was not, I don't know how many people that stadium holds, but there was more than whatever it held. Tyrann Mathieu was there. It was unbelievable.
More than that. Yeah, it was Alante Taylor was there. I think it was 3 Current Saints players, and Tyrann Mathieu was there.
His relative was on the team too. His relative,
right? Yeah.
On St. Aug's team, I should clarify.
Yeah, little cousin.
No, what an atmosphere, and what a game. But the talent on that field, was just crazy, So yes, Carr extends their winning streak to 18 in a row. Next game we're going to talk about saw a winning streak of 11 games come to an end as. Man, Lafayette Christian just keeps doing it. This is maybe as impressive a 5-week stretch that we've seen up to this point. But LCA goes to defending Division I non-select champ Central and wins 55-48. And they do this a week after going to Shaw and essentially laying a goose egg and play maybe their worst game in quite some time. But I don't know any other words to say other than extremely impressed by what LCA has done, not just last week, but every single week of the season.
It's crazy. It feels like LCA probably lost to their weakest opponent on their crazy schedule.
Yeah.
Not that Shaw's a weak opponent by any stretch, but
right.
Go on the road and beat a reigning state champ on 11 straight. It's just crazy. But on that same token, it almost felt like Braylon Walker was due for a huge game. Braylon Walker. To talk about John Johnson and Braylon Walker in back-to-back matchups here, that's definitely two of the most dynamic quarterbacks in Louisiana by a long shot. And so Braylon Walker, 279 total yards, 3 touchdowns, 58-yard rushing touchdown. Last week he threw 5 or 6 interceptions. So it's really good to see this stud quarterback turning around that quickly, forget about last week, and go on the road and beat another state champ. It's just crazy that they went and did this. And so
you got to think if you were Central, you were almost looking at their Shaw game thinking we really have to play these guys this week. You didn't want to play time.
Yep. But it's just crazy. LCA 438 total yards. It's just unbelievable. And then Central, they had some great nights too. That I guess Jason, if you want to talk more on the Central side.
Well, looking at the Central side, Gassiot, who's been their quarterback, over 200 yards total for him. But really, when you talk about LCA, we talked about how last week they struggle to throw the football. There's no sugarcoating it. When you throw 6 interceptions, it's a bad day. You really need to, what that tells you is you need to have a solid combination of running the football. And Caden Bellard's a guy who I've been talking about, sophomore running back. Guys, this sophomore, and I'll continue to say it, we keep talking about this junior class of quarterbacks, and it's very valid. One of, if not the strongest group of junior quarterbacks we've ever had in the state's history when it comes to recruiting and talent. But this sophomore class of running backs, extremely talented. And Bellard is in that list, $160 against this type of defense for 4 touchdowns. I mean, that's a solid night for that young man. But that's also why you saw them have more success. When you're able to mix in the run as well as the pass, you can't just rely on one thing when you're going to beat a team like Central. You have to be a 2-dimensional team, and they were. And it was enough to beat a really good football team. And that's not an easy place to play. Central is a very difficult environment to play. Beautiful stadium, beautiful, it's solid atmosphere. And them to go on the road and win that game after taking that loss just shows this is the front runner in Division III Select, no question about it. There's still a ton of depth in that division, so it'll be interesting to see if I can kind of pressure them. But, man, it's going to be – we talk about Carr in Division I Select. LCA is the same thing in Division III Select. It's going to take somebody – they're going to have to play a C game similar to what they played against Shaw, and the other team's going to have to come out with their hair on fire and play lights out. And I don't know how many teams are going to be able to do that over the course of the season.
Yeah, no, their talent for any classification, but specifically in Division III Select, it's just going to be overwhelming. And looking ahead at their schedule, so the gauntlet they just ran through, and for the next really 4 weeks, I guess it doesn't get a whole lot easier. They start district next week with Lafayette Renaissance, who's undefeated. Also, those guys used to coach at LCA. Yep. Trev Falk, Hunter Landry were at LCA for, they got them rolling, took them to the Dome Force. They're here at Lafayette Renaissance. There's going to be, that's going to be some high emotion there. Then they play Notre Dame, and then they get a district bye week in week 9 and go to Evangel. So their schedule is insane. That district with Lafayette Renaissance and Notre Dame won't be easy, but I think they would have to be one of the most impressive teams through the first 5 weeks of the season when you take into account the size of school and who they're doing this against. But man, and on the flip side of that, if you're Central, that defense is so talented, and it's almost head scratching how they're still giving up, bunches of points. So I think once Central kind of figures that out, I wouldn't be shocked if they make another deep run in the postseason.
I bet there's a level of Central needing this loss. You know what I mean? Like, they're not just going to run the table again this year. So, when does this loss come? Like, there's probably just a reminder, like, hey, if our defense doesn't show up, we can lose still, And so sometimes it's good to get that early loss out the way. It's just bringing everybody back down to earth a little bit.
Yeah, look, their district is pretty difficult too, right? So when you're talking about, they have Catholic in their district. They also have Zachary. Woodlawn of Baton Rouge has been a pretty scrappy team this year. Liberty Magnet might not have the wins and losses, like the win total, or maybe the quality wins that some teams would say. But look, that's a team. You bring in a state title coach and Coach Zachary out of Opelousas. They're turning things around. This is a underrated district, and I think to your guys' point, maybe you did need a loss. Like maybe it is a little bit of a wake up call and getting some things exposed on tape that you can kind of go back and watch and figure it out. But I will say, if any team can figure it out, it's this team. The Central team has a ton of talent both sides of the ball, and it's both of you guys said. I would definitely see this team making a semifinal, quarter to final run, somewhere in between, because they are in Division I non-select, and I gotta say, guys, I don't see any real weak divisions this year. There's no man, if only we were in that division, we might be able to make a nicer run. The entire state's difficult, top to bottom, especially this year.
Yeah, no, I agree. All divisions, the brackets, really going back to last year, once they kind of redefined what select and non-select were, they become more competitive and deeper. And I think the sweet, again, I think we said this earlier, but short of everyone coming together, I think we found the sweet spot when it comes to playoff parity and competition. So we go from Baton Rouge area and head right back down to the New Orleans area, down in the Catholic League, where Rummel defeated Brother Martin 31-7. I think that if we were to give an award for the unit of the week, it would be the Rummel defense. But what that Rummel defense did to a very explosive Brother Martin offense was super impressive. 3 interceptions they forced Brother Martin into. They also blocked a punt early in the game. But man, that Rummel defense to hold Easton Royal, he had one explosive play that he caught like a hitch route, broke a tackle, and took it to the house, which you almost kind of expect him to do. But the plan they had for him, and Coach Monica said it in this post-game interview, yes, Easton Royal was the focal point, but they have weapons on that Brother Martin offense all over the place. But for what that defense did to hold them to 7 points was extremely impressive.
I think the Catholic League, when you get into this point of the season, is all about matchups. Like, Rummel is really good in the secondary. They're really good at linebacker. And so they were able to match up with these Brother Martin receivers that have been overwhelming these other defenses that they've gone up against, right? So, and they're going to do that. Brother Martin's going to overwhelm some other Catholic League teams that don't have those type of skill guys on the defense. And so, but I think it's all about matchups. And so clearly Rummel was able to match up with these receivers, which is a huge task, like you said. And then on the flip side of that, Rummel, once you start playing some physical football, controlling the clock, the way they ran the football looks like they were extremely efficient. The quarterback is good enough to keep you very honest. He was extremely efficient. Didn't throw any interceptions. He was 7 of 8. He only threw 1 incompletion, and so that's all you need from the Rummel quarterback when you have such a strong, running game to really control the clock and stuff. And so this just felt like one of those games that I'm sure on the Brother Martin side, Rummel was running the ball, they're running the clock, and you start pressing on your side. You start making one mistake turns into 2 mistakes, and all of a sudden you're down by 3 touchdowns, and you don't know what happened. And so, but yeah, I think when you look at a lot of these Catholic League games, when scores don't always align with what you would expect, it just comes down to certain matchups with certain position groups, and that's what I feel like Rummel had on Brother Martin.
Jaden Terrence for 220 yards running the football. Look, you had Norman Taylor last year, who was really their bell cow back. Got hurt in the middle of the year, and you saw them have to kind of figure things out to an extent. But Terrence has really kind of picked up where they left off. And we talked to Coach Monica earlier, and he said, we're not really a run or a pass team. We kind of figure out what the strengths of our team are and utilize them. But, man, clearly the offensive line and the running game have been the strength the past 2 years because they seem to always find a way to run the football. And, again, you have Hawkins, who played a lot, a significant role last year. Corian Hawkins, who played a lot of running back when Taylor went down last year. He also comes in for 67 yards on 12 carries. Like, they just find a way to get things done. But to you guys' point defensively, if you can limit Easton Royal to one really big explosive play, then your defensive unit had a great game plan you executed. Because you're not going to be able to hold a guy like that down the entire night. You're gonna give up a play. It's how you respond to it, and clearly this defense responded really well. I think the most to your point, Lance, one of the most underutilized strategies is controlling the football. It's just the age of football we live in, right? Spread the football, air the ball out 60 times, throw touchdowns, put up big numbers. Ask Northwest Louisiana, right? Ask those guys in 1-5A, because we're going to talk about them a little bit later. They love to score points up there, but when you're talking about winning these gritty games in the Catholic League, being able to run the football, control the clock, and playing solid defense, that'll get you a long way. And it's be interesting to see how Rummel moves forward.
Yeah, it was almost one of the vintage Rummel victory in the sense of they get a big special teams play, they play lights out defense, and they run the football and control the clock. Listening to Coach Monica's post-game interview, he did say that their goal going into most I think he meant for most games was they want 20 to 25 carries of 4+ yards. And he almost sounded disappointed because Jaden Terrence busted a few long ones, they weren't able to get to 20 carries of 4+ yards. So he was almost upset about that. But when they can run the ball like that, man, they're going to be tough to stop. But I think, Lance, you got the secret to their success. We can talk about their running game, their special teams, and their defense all we want. What did they wear?
Oh, clearly, that's obvious. So Romo wore red, and I don't understand how it's hard to figure that out. I'm glad you brought that up. If they wear baby blue, Easton Royal goes for 4 touchdowns.
I'm with you. If you're listening, like we've got, quit watching film, quit worrying about how many average yards per carry you got. Wear red, everything will be taken care of. That's all you need to figure out.
For those who haven't figured out, there's been a weekly. There's been in the group chat for the last 5 weeks discussing the uniform that Rumble comes out in. So
it
was a full
they're
circle
different
moment.
in baby blue. The baby blue looks great.
Oh, it looks great. It's too pretty.
It's awesome. But I agree. It's hard. It's hard to roll out. Right? It's hard to roll out there in baby blue and say we're going to play defensive special teams.
Right.
I don't know.
Can't punch you in the mouth in baby blue.
No, you can't do it. I agree. Moving on down we'll go back to and hit the river parishes up for you, Jason. We'll go back to Destrehan, and this was a game, Destrehan and Terrebonne. Terrebonne beats Destrehan last year, and it snapped their, I think it was like a 32-game district win streak that they had at the time. Jackson Fields did not play in that game. Fast forward 1 year earlier, Destrehan wins 41-28. I got to listen to Coach Marcus Scott's post-game interview here, and they asked him about the role that last year's game played in their preparation for this week. And the way he answered the question made it very obvious that they were not happy that they lost to Terrebonne last year. Like, they made it a big deal. Like, we're going to go out there and exact some revenge. That's exactly what they did. This Terrebonne team is really, really good. This Destrehan team kind of flexed their muscle a little bit this week.
Yeah, it seems like a very motivated Destrehan team is what we expected and got. Destrehan, like you said, extremely balanced attack. 4 passing touchdowns from Jackson Fields, 3 rushing touchdowns from the running back Dabney. Malachi Dabney. But Destrehan is probably exactly who we think they are. They're a great football team, great quarterback, well balanced, well coached, everything. Terrebonne, Jason made kind of a quick point just about a week ago about Terrebonne, and it's how they run the football so well. It's weird that they are scoring so many points because, like, you would think there'd be some more clock control, and so my biggest wonder here is, obviously those turnovers. Terrebonne shot themselves in the foot. They had 5 turnovers, which it's hard to control the game when you're turning the football over, But I think that I guess where I'm surprised is that with such a strong running attack that Terrebonne has, they weren't able to control the clock a little bit more, maybe keep Jackson Fields and these guys off the team. For Destrehan to still go out and put up 41 points versus a very strong rushing attack on the other side, it feels like if these teams were to match up again, maybe Terrebonne finds ways to not put it on the ground, controls the clock a little bit better. And so, but either way, Terrebonne's off to a great start still this year, and I'm sure it is a great learning experience for those guys.
Yeah, when you look at this Terrebonne team, we talked about Quincy Adams and this offensive line. He still ran for 3 touchdowns. This offensive line is still super impressive, but we know that Destrehan plays they're a really good football team, and they've been one of the contenders in and out for the past decade, 15 years. It's very hard. You have to really do some searching to find a year where Destrehan was considered to be, quote, down. So, you have Jabari Mack, we have this conversation each week, and my answer tends to change each week, but Jabari Mack, who is in that conversation for one of the best receivers in the state. Oh, by the way, he can also play some defensive back, just as good. You have a quarterback in Fields who is a really impressive player. Dabney, I would argue, is in that mix. We're talking about running backs of the future. He's in that conversation for guys who might have been getting overlooked at a certain point. I think this Destrehan team knew what they wanted to come out and do. And look, the game was tied 21-all, y'all. It was tied 21-all at the half, and they came out and, played their style of football in the second half and found a way to pull away in that game. And that's the type of team that Destrehan is. No matter who they're playing, they always have a chance to win the football game. Even their 2 losses were very close. So I would put Destrehan in that same vein as a St. Thomas More when you're looking at those 3-2 ball clubs in the state. Like, yes, they're 3-2, but had they have been like some other schools in the state that might have just been, finding a game as opposed to going out and challenging themselves with some elite teams, they could very easily be 5-0 at this point in the year.
Yeah, no doubt. That schedule was brutal to start. You play a schedule like that it's going to be hard to go through unscathed. We'll go up north. You mentioned earlier, Jason, about District 1 5A. Well, let's go to a game that illustrates everything that we've talked about with this district. Airline and Captain Shreve. Captain Shreve wins. It's a football game now, 66-56. Airline, who falls, this loss drops them to 3-2. They started off winning their first 3 games of the season. Their last 2 games, which they've lost, they've given up 51 and 66 points. Look, this is an Airline team that on offense with Williams and Kenny Darby, they can obviously put up points with the best of them, but defensively, they've got to figure out a way to slow some teams down if they're going to win some ball games.
Yeah, I need Jason to send me one of these like stream links to one of these games. Because this is just, I can't understand what this even looks like. How in 48 minutes that 2 teams can score over 100 points. It blows my mind. It feels like teams aren't trying to play defense. Like I don't get it. What you about to say?
It's almost like the thought process is let them score quick so we get the ball back.
Yeah, so we can score here.
Look, I'm going to say this too. When you talk about some of the most dynamic athletes offensively in the state, though, you got Jamarcia Plater, who I've been saying his name all year. I got to this summer. I really got into. Let me just go look at teams and watch their huddle. Let me just go look at film. And when I watched Plater's tape, guys, it was jaw-dropping the amount of plays that this young man was able to make. He is a converted defensive back and wide receiver. He started playing running back last year. By the 5-game mark, I believe it was, he was already at 1,100 yards, maybe even 1,400 yards. He's now the leading rusher in the school's history. He is an incredible athlete to watch. Then you got Dabney on the other side, who's an incredible player, just can go up and grab any football. You guys mentioned Williams. Williams was last year playing JV football, steps in after a long-term quarterback. I believe he was a 3-year starter at Airline who's now playing at the college level. And, again, it's really looked impressive. They have guys offensively that just light up the scoreboard. And maybe you can say, yeah, the defenses, but man, it's really tough to stop teams when you've got electric offenses like this. And you mentioned watching some of these games online, and I've seen them. It's boom, boom, boom. It's like watching, 2 people play ping pong on a really long table and just hitting the ball in the air and just waiting for it to drop. It is incredible to watch the offensive output that these teams are able to go into week in and week out.
Yeah, and the crazy part about it, too, is that these offenses are putting up these numbers, and it's not like they're just dropping back, throwing it every down. Like you mentioned, Plater for Captain, they're running the football, and they're just, it's 10, 12 yards a pop. It's crazy. Captain Shreve quarterback Jackson Gaskin, they only threw 17 passes. He completed 13 of them for 418 yards. That's an average. That's not a lot. It's crazy. And I think the thing that kind of blows my mind, Lance, I think you're the same way. It's the entire district. It's not like it's just 2 teams. It's the entire district. And it makes for some fun football games. I don't know how you can do this the 3rd week in November. So I think that's going to be that's going to be what determines if they can continue to play deep into the playoffs. Not you run into a team that plays deep. You run into a team name whoever it is. Can you score 60 points and win on November 20th? I don't know.
So to run down for those who are unfamiliar with the district, just to list the teams, you have Airline, you have Benton, who kind of has been struggling hasn't gotten a ton of wins, but really has some incredible offensive weapons, including one of the best quarterbacks in the class, Malachi Ziegler, who, when you're talking about Peyton Houston and who's in Evangel, who is also in the district, who's lit up the scoreboard. You also, of course, have Haven out of Dunham. Really the one that's kind of getting overlooked is Ziegler, who is at Benton, really an impressive player. Bird has put up a bunch of points. Captain Shreve, Evangel, Houghton, who has a quarterback in Taylor Weathersby, who I believe again put up 300-plus yards. Really, he has a talented receiver on his team as well. Huntington, who's lit up the scoreboard passing the football as well. Natchitoches Central, who's also got Owen Smith, that quarterback, and they got a really impressive set of receivers. And Parkway, who might have the most versatile weapons You got 4 or 5 guys that feel like they can play wide receiver, 3 or 4 guys that can play at quarterback. It doesn't matter which team in the district. They all score points in bunches, and they all look really impressive doing it.
Parkway hadn't scored less than 40 points in a game. They've scored less than 50 only once. That's I don't know. It's crazy. It's extremely entertaining, and it's fun to watch. The numbers they put up are it's eye popping. But we'll see what happens when they get deeper here into the playoffs. In a battle down in the Lafayette area, we previewed on Tuesday a little bit with Vermilion Catholic and Riverside. Riverside travels to Vermilion Catholic, wins 49-19. It's been a tough start for Coach Brock Prejean and this Vermilion Catholic Screaming Eagles football team coming off of a state championship last year. But this Riverside team has been very, very impressive. They're athletic, they're tough, they're physical. This is a team in Riverside that I think can make some noise down deep into the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like Coach Brock, everybody knows Coach Prejean does a great job at VC. It feels like they probably lost a good bit of guys from last year's state championship team. There's no other way that they'd be 1-4. But yeah, this Riverside team is awesome. I saw them early in the season. I've been praising them since. Just a tough football team that is really, really well coached with Coach Lee Roussel, Coach Lashney, the defense coordinator. Like, they are really impressive. They really put it on Newman earlier this year when I was at the game. And, this is not shocking that they are doing this. The only shocking part is, like Jason's mentioned this a couple times, they are playing with 8th and 9th graders in multiple spots and beating a reigning state champ 49-19. So it's not like Riverside's like the senior heavy football team either. I mean, they're holding certain spots and they're crazy young in some spots.
Well, even their sophomores are like 3-year starters. Like
their best player, right?
Their
best player is a
receivers,
sophomore.
Yeah, their receivers are all sophomores. Your Boogie Johnson, that receiver. Look, man, he's a great player too. But here's the thing: the guy who I mentioned, Jaden Obikwe, I mentioned him before the game on Tuesday. $150, 4 touchdowns. Again, he's a newer player to the roster. He transferred in from East Jeff a year ago. Ran for 1,000 yards on a team that made a nice little run in their part of the bracket. But this is a team that can attack in a lot of ways. You have Brock Bourgeois at quarterback, who's a 4-year guy. Their defense is looking really solid. And again, their secondary is one of the youngest parts of their defense. They got some big physical linemen on both sides of the football. Now, something you're really going to see a lot of in that division. So regardless of who you are or who's on your chest, this is a team that's going to come out and play you. And I think Riverside is really setting themselves up for success here at the tail end of the season, rolling into the playoffs. They have a real good shot potentially at a bye. Their only loss is to Terrebonne, who they played really tough, who's a team that's very physical and runs the football really well. So I think Vermilion Catholics clearly had some trouble. I think they lost a lot. I don't think their schedule has set them up for success this year. I'm definitely not counting this team out. This is a team that this might not be the program's proudest year in terms of wins and losses, but it's all about how you respond in the resiliency that you have. And they have a real opportunity here with district coming up to respond strong in district, to make a play, to make a run in the playoffs, because I don't know how many teams in Division 4 Select have played a schedule like Vermilion Catholic has. And I think it's very easy to overlook that aspect when playing the wins-losses game in these lower levels. Who's playing who? Are you playing 1A teams that are not going to make the playoffs, or are you going up and playing a 5A team? Are you going up and playing a team in Catholic New Iberia that's sitting with 1 loss at this point in the season, coming off a state title? Like, that's why we have the PowerPoint system. And that's the one great thing about Louisiana high school football with that system.
Yeah, that's a good point when you talk about their schedule. And the other thing is, when you have a group like they had last year, those guys, not only did they graduate a lot, but those guys played for 3 and 4 years. If you go back to just the first time they've lost multiple games since 2021, their first 4-loss regular season since 2016. But when you have a team and a group like that, and they were really talented, you schedule up. Well, at some point, those guys are going to leave, and you're still left with that same schedule. And I think that's kind of where VC is right now. But, they're going in the long run, that program is going to be just fine moving forward.
kind of a St. Charles situation from last
Yeah,
year, though, right?
absolutely.
St. Charles had a really tough schedule, struggled for a long part of the year. We're seeing them on the other end of the hill this season. I think Vermilion Catholic's going to be in that similar situation next year. Again, St. Charles still made a run as well. So I would definitely not count out the Streaming Eagles.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. There's a good comp with St. Charles. Going from the Lafayette area, moving up into Washington Parish, Jules Sumner and Franklinton. Jules Sumner defeats Franklinton 21-14 in overtime. This is the second straight season that these teams have played an overtime game. Franklinton won last year. Sumner stays undefeated, maybe one of the quietest 5-0s that we've had in the state. But they've been extremely impressive. They rushed for 253 yards as a team. They were led by Jamad Dotson in his 121 rushing yards. This is a Jules Sumner team that we talked about it last week. They won 10 games last year. This is a huge victory against Franklinton for this program.
Yeah, I remember texting you guys early in the season. I saw Jules Sumner beat Kentwood, and I thought it seems like a pretty big deal there. You know, I texted you guys, and I've been keeping up with them, and every week they get a little bit more impressive with some of these wins. Digging in a little bit deeper on Jules Sumner, they lost to Franklinton by 3 points last year, a team that went to the Dome. So, that tells you that this Sumner team has been building towards this. They had a great team last year. And so, furthermore, they got a kid by the name of Jamon Dyson, who is an All-American Bowl invite. So this is, Jules Sumner is not a traditional football power, I wouldn't say, but right now this is a team that is exploding onto the scene. And, if you know a little bit more about them, maybe should have seen this coming because how closely they played Franklinton last year. And here they are, beating some really good opponents early in the season. So really fun team to keep up with right now.
And Dyson is a two-way guy as well. He plays some linebacker, really had a big game. So Jeremiah Brooks. Brooks is a guy at running backs. They've got really two-headed monster there in the backfield, both all district caliber players. Also, even in the conversation for all state honors. So it's not surprising that they won this game. But what I will say is important to keep in mind with Franklinton. They had some injuries in this game. Crane went down at one point, so they had to change that quarterback. This was not Franklinton at full strength. And while you can't use that as an excuse, it is still an important piece of the conversation to have. However, regardless, I still think this is a nice win for Jules Sumner. They're a team that is not – we've said it, right? They're 5-0. They played a pretty solid schedule, maybe not getting the recognition that they would, kind of similar to a team like Bunkie down here in South Louisiana, where Bunkie is a team that – now I have a lot of people talking about them, but they got a really great player in Zion Lee out there as a Navy commit, and I think those teams matched up in the playoffs last year, I believe.
Yeah.
And these are two teams that kind of remind me of each other in that regard. Some smaller towns, right? River Parish vibes. Smaller town, not really get the recognition that teams out in the big city would, or out in the suburbs, but. For them, I think they're aware of how good their own teams are in their respect. I think Sumner is part of that conversation that if they weren't on your radar, they should be after this football game.
Yeah, and it's tough kids from a tough town. They're starting to play good football. And if you look at their schedule, they start to get into district next week. There's a real chance that they run the table and go undefeated. That is definitely on the table for Jules Sumner Cowboys. It'll be fun to follow them the rest of the season. Sliding on down from Washington Parish down into St. Tammany Parish, Salmon knocks off Lakeshore 35-28. This is one I didn't see coming. I think this Lakeshore team is really good. They're really physical. They've got some big wins on the season. Salmon, a team that they get that win gets them now to 3-2. This is an extremely impressive win for Salmon as they start to move into district, but did not see this one coming at all.
Quarterback from Lakeshore didn't disappoint. Brody Loudmilk scored 4 touchdowns, total 200 yards, 120 of those were rushing. So he's a stud. Yeah, I was shocked by this one. I think my main takeaway, I guess, is, well, first off, there's a bullet point in our notes here where there's some injuries on that Lakeshore side. So you get into the middle part of the season, man, injuries here and there it changes the outlooks of seasons, And so injuries are tough to overcome, but they're part of the game. My bigger takeaway, I guess, is more on the Salmon side. That district is like hard to figure out who is good and not good. Like Salmon, all of a sudden, is Salmon pretty good? We had some hopes on Slidell, but they had a strange loss. North Shore lost. Chalmette didn't look great against Holy Cross, but they have looked good since. So I feel like that's a district over there from that Chalmette and the east side of St. Tammany that is just a kind of a toss-up district, and maybe it might come down to just who's healthy at the right times in that district.
Yeah, well, and when you look at, I don't want to cut you off there, Jason, but you have the injuries from Lakeshore, and Salmon forces 3 fumbles, and not only do they force the fumbles, but 2 of them are defensive touchdowns, and I think that's looking at an anatomy of an upset. That's it, and that kind of tells the story. But still, shocking to see that score.
Yeah, and Chansey has been a guy at running back for Salmon who's really been a big piece. He's kind of been one of the catalysts for their offense. But really, what impressed me about Salmon is they've been finding a way to win both ways, right? Quarterback John Howard, 222 passing the football, passed for 2 touchdowns, ran for 1 as well. He's looked impressive. And when you look at their schedule, though, right, when we're talking about trying to figure out this area, what's important to keep in mind is they dropped the game to Mandeville. They dropped the game to East Ascension, who, and again, I will continue to reiterate this message. We can even talk about them a little bit later. I think East Ascension was one of the easiest sleeper teams to call in the state. They were only sitting at 1 loss at this point in the season. So they lost their first 2 games, but they were both within a score, and they've won 3 straight. So I just think when you look at, and those wins were over Bogalusa, Liberty, which is a team I mentioned earlier, I think they're an underrated ball club. The wins aren't backing it up the story I'm telling, but they are a really good football team. And then you have Lakeshore. So I think the reason you can't figure out the North Shore area is because there's nothing to figure out. There are a lot of evenly matched teams. There's not one that's really pulling themselves and distancing themselves away from the others. I think when we dig into the rest of this district, man, there's going to be a bunch of games that come down the wire, and a lot of good football, fun football games to come when they kind of dig into district play a little bit deeper.
Yeah, and speaking of that sets up the last 2 games we talked about. This sets up a really interesting matchup to start District 7 4A next week when Lakeshore plays Franklinton. 2 teams coming off of a loss, probably not where they expected to be or thought they would be. I know Lakeshore is still 4-1 at this point in the season, but this is, outside of what it means for the district, this is a really big game coming up this week between Lakeshore and Franklinton. Kind of wrap up our games we wanted to hit on before we hit some more on Curtis and Warren Easton. Speaking of districts and how deep districts are, this is a Curtis team. It comes in rolling. They go to 4-0 and stay undefeated. And they beat Warren Easton 33-29. Score that the game was that close. It was exactly that close. Warren Easton makes a furious comeback at the end. I think they might have had the ball towards the end of the game with a chance to go win. But when you look at this district as a whole, when you're thinking of Warren Easton, that may be the 7th best team in a district. It's unbelievable week in and week out, the grind that is going on in the Catholic League. And I think this game right here underscores that perfectly.
The main note here is the botched punt snap from Easton. Like, I think the margin of error in the Catholic League is so slim that that they basically Easton botched a punt snap, gave Curtis an easy touchdown. You lose by 4 points. I watched the Holy Cross Jesuit game that felt very similar. A couple special teams mistakes, a couple missed kicks, and Jesuit wins by 8. And it's just like that is literally the margin of error in this league. Is if you're gonna win, you can't botch a punt snap. Like, it just can't happen. And so I think Easton's learning that kind of the hard way. They're still new to the Catholic League, but they've got to clean up the special teams play to really get over the hump. It feels like they have all the talent necessary to be super competitive in this league, but that's just how slim the margin of error is in this league, and that's why they still haven't had a Catholic League victory. On the other side, London Pageant, Gavin Ledette, 2 of my favorite kids. I've trained with those guys. Have trained with me since they were in junior high. It's great seeing those guys continue doing their thing. London Pageant looked great on a long run. 88-yard touchdown run. That was a highlight on Friday Night Football that, of course, Coach J.T. Curtis was giving the highlights. So that's always a cool dynamic seeing him talk about his own quarterback. But, Curtis found a way to win, and, it feels like they probably found a way to win because they didn't make the mistakes that it takes to really lose in the Catholic League.
Well, and what's really impressive about this Curtis offense is they're doing it without a really talented receiver in Jarvis Stevenson, who hasn't fully recovered from an injury, is hopefully going to be coming back later this season. But they typically, again, their style of offense, they're not going to pass the ball a ton, but they typically have like a dude that's at receiver. I really feel like Jarvis Stevenson is that dude. He's already got some D1 offers, 6'4", 185, really electric, had some highlight reel catches last year. And they're doing it without him, right? They're running the football heavily, playing solid special teams, and winning football games. And when you're able to have that combination of things, it's, playing solid defense when you need to. And obviously maybe they gave a little bit more points than they wanted to in this game. But look, I can't overemphasize this. Warren Easton is a team that in any other district in the state could possibly run on the table. This is a team that has Carl Reed at quarterback, who is a guy who went for 200 total yards in the game. Thomas Vaughn went for 135. And Terrell Surtain, who's a guy you mentioned the other week, Lance, said how electric you thought he looked. This team has athletes on the offensive side of the football. They have some really strong defense. They have a pretty strong defensive unit, some really strong pieces on that team. But when you're in the Catholic League, every game becomes so difficult. I would compare it to winning in the NFL. You can't complain about how you win. Did you get the win that week? And there's no other league in the state that I think that compares to that level. We did talk about 2-5A a bunch of times, and now that's probably one of the closest or the closest in the entire state. But, man, it is really difficult to win games in the Catholic League, regardless who you are, what name you have on your chest, or how many athletes you have on your team.
Yep, I was just going to add, if you've ever coached against Curtis, you know how hard it is to run the football against Curtis. Running for 100 yards against Curtis is a heck of a feat. Easton had 3 guys rush for over 100 yards against John Curtis. Like, that just speaks to, like, the talent they have in their offense. And so, yeah, I mean, they're gonna get a win here in the Catholic League pretty soon. It's just about playing, mistake-free football.
Matchups, right? We talked about that earlier. It's really the matchups in this league matter so much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and their next – I mean, not that it gets any ease, but Rummel's got Easton next week, and it's a short week. They play on a Thursday night, so that may be – like you said, they're going to get somebody. They might get 2 somebodies, but I think next week against Rummel may be one that you can circle. And, that we start to hit some other games around the state that caught our attention. There's a few others that I'd like to get to, but I think while we're talking about that league, we can talk about one we previewed on Thursday with Jesuit and Holy Cross. Jesuit beats Holy Cross 20-12. It was a game that was Jesuit had a 17-10 lead, or maybe 17-7 lead at one point. Holy Cross gets back in it with a safety. Holy Cross was actually driving down 17-12 some point in the middle of the third quarter in the red zone, throws an interception. It's kind of when the game turned, and then Jesuit goes and kicks a field goal and kind of puts it out of reach. But I think this game illustrates everything we talk about in the Catholic. Both teams looked at, one, we've got to get wins and we can get wins. I think they both saw this game as that opportunity. Jesuit able to come up on top and in a hard-fought, close, low-scoring game, which is exactly what we thought it would be.
Sully Sullivan, sophomore quarterback for Jesuit, another kid I've known since he's in junior high. He's listed as a third-string quarterback. Jesuit's had a couple injuries, and he was the player of the game. He ran for 2 touchdowns, and so for a sophomore to come into the biggest rivalry of the season and do what he did was really incredible. It speaks to the depth of Jesuit's football team, and so big shout out to him. And the main thing he did was he didn't make any mistakes. He didn't turn the football over. When the throws were there, he made the throws. When it was time to run the football inside the 10-yard line, he got into the end zone. Like, he just played a very good, crisp game that, I mean, you really couldn't ask any more out of a sophomore coming into that football game. So great job by him. I know on the Holy Cross side, they had their opportunities for sure to win that football game. made some mistakes that I know Coach Watney's going to be working on cleaning up. And, it just goes back to the margin of error. I mean, if you really watched that whole game, you could have seen where the game could have gone the other way. And just, I think Jesuit just made less mistakes than Holy Cross did that night.
Yeah, and when you look around at some other games, right? Game I mentioned before, Sacred Heart taking on Westminster Christian of Opelousas, two undefeated teams coming in. Sacred Heart's defense really scary. Westminster Christian scored on the opening play an 70-yard touchdown pass from Stephen George to wide receiver Thomas. And again, other than that, Sacred Heart defense did a really good job. That's a team out in that way I think is not maybe used to getting the notoriety. I think that's a scary football team. Both these teams are scary. I think this is going to be fun to watch how, Division 4 select kind of moves forward as well. Another big one, guys, Catholic New Iberia, Lake Charles College Prep. Catholic New Iberia wins, no surprise there, 49-42, just based off of what we know the program to be. Guys, they were trailing 20-14, had 3 consecutive onside kicks in the second half, converted all 3 into touchdowns.
It's the year of the onside kick.
We've been talking about that, right? Owen Morris, running back, goes for 240, a really nice night. And, there's just so many games that we can talk about. I'm going to continue kind of jumping on this bandwagon before I let somebody else talk. Loyola Prep had the high point of the night, 71 points.
48.
71 to 48.
48.
We're giving up 48 and we're winning by almost 30 points.
Yeah. I mean, look, Bryce Restovich, a guy who I've talked a ton about on this show, 507 passing yards on the night. He broke the school record of 382, which was set in 2011. He had 8 total touchdowns, 7 passing, and 1 rushing. A pretty decent night for any player, I would say.
Not bad. Not bad at all.
I was going to mention U High big win over St. Paul's at St. Paul's. That's one where they're used to playing bigger, better opponents, but pretty impressive win for U High. And then I was going to give my guy, Coach Pygott, somebody we probably need to get on the podcast at some point. Coach Pygott, head coach at Pope John Paul. He had a nice win over St. Martin's, 28-12. St. Martin's has been putting up a lot of points with their quarterback, Donnie Lawrence. But Pope John Paul, Coach Pygott, known for his defensive schematics, he had a great game plan for those guys.
Yeah, that's Pope's had a really good year up to this point, and I think that they're going to make some noise in that district as well. I've got Hammond beating Slidell 35-28. Slidell's been extremely impressive, but so is Hammond. Hammond's now 4-1. Yep. It's a program that kind of went through some struggles here lately. They've kind of got it turned around a little bit, and we can talk about all the stats in the world. We know that's not why they won. Lance, why did they win?
Hammond won the uniform contest. I thought they had some really cool uniforms. Purple helmet. No, what was it? Shoot, now I'm drawing a blank on it all of a sudden. What did I text y'all? It was a very XFL type look. Yeah. They had gray pants. Now, I'm trying to almost look back at what I had. Oh, yeah. XFL look, purple helmet, white jersey, gray pant. Yeah, it was. And the logo, Cassie would point out, it was literally a logo from one XFL team. So I hit it right on the head with the XFL look. So, I thought Hammond's uniforms gave Slidell no chance.
No, that logo really does. That logo is straight out of the XFL, for sure.
Really cool.
That's funny. Let's see. Any other, Jason? Any other?
I want to hit on though, but while we're still doing okay on time, guys. But Vanderbilt Catholic beating Lutcher 14-3.
Holding Lutcher to 3 points, man. That's
And look, that's a big win. I'm telling you guys, Vanderbilt Catholic is an underrated place to play.
We had you and I had that game last year, didn't we? Was that the game we had at Lutcher?
Yes,
Lutcher kind of ran away with it late.
Lutcher manhandled them, and again, that was with a really solid back in Jaden Coleman, who's now at Liberty. A really impressive back and neutralized him, and they turn around and get the 14-3 win. That's a big win for Vanderbilt Catholic.
How about Notre Dame going to Cecilia winning 45-35? That's to see Cecilia at 1-4. I mean, that's not what we expected. But Notre Dame's been extremely impressive.
And also, look, St. Thomas More getting the tight win over Westgate. Westgate 1-4, but man, really, look, they have a lot of athletes on that team. I've already talked about Chance Archangel, probably one of my favorite players to watch film on in the state. They have a lot of talent. St. Thomas More again continues to find a way. But guys, Ouachita Parish maybe not getting the attention that they deserve. Guys, this is a Franklin Parish team that I truly believe is in the conversation to win Division II non-select. For them to go out and win. A lot of people they beat Sterlington in a tight game, relied on 2 pick sixes in that game. There was some doubters out there on Ouachita Parish. This is a big win over a really talented Franklin Parish team on the road, and the way that they did it impressed me.
So point out Newman wins 33-13 over Riverdale. Riverdale's a Division I select school, so it's a pretty big jump in classification for Newman. But most importantly, they put up 33 points. So to see Coach Weiss and Jake Randall, they're really figuring out how to utilize their weapons over there at Newman.
I think that was Riverdale's first loss too. I think that was their first loss. So
yeah, they'll definitely be a playoff team in Division I. They have been since since they restructured stuff. They're the best team in that district, and the way the PowerPoints work out, they work in their advantage, I'd say.
Yep. Going back to that STM game, Jason.
I'll go back.
They were down. Westgate had to lead with about 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter. That's STM's third straight comeback win in the fourth quarter in games in which they were trailing. I don't know if they recovered an onside kick for the third straight week, but no, that's. And look, that Westgate team is, like you said, they're extremely talented. That's always a tight game when those two get together. So another come from behind win for St. Thomas More.
Yeah, and then one game, 2 teams we don't get to talk about a lot, man. Tioga and Jena, 45-26 ball game. Tioga has to play up in Division I, even though they're a 4A team. Jena's been absolutely impressive throughout the season. So this was kind of a test for both of these teams moving forward, but these are 2 teams that we're going to be hearing more about as the season goes on. But the Jena Giants always in the conversation, and Tioga find a way to beat them by double digits is pretty impressive.
Also, maybe I don't know if you call it underrated, because when you hear it, it's properly rated. The Giants as a nickname.
Oh yeah.
In high school football, very good, very good. Yeah. No, that's
I also like Titans, Lakeshore Titans. Like how? Hey, look, there's a few teams.
Titans look like the Raiders. Is that what we're?
That's the one thing that's a little weird. I was thinking the same thing.
I was going to say there's only a few really unique nicknames in the state. My Comets are one of them, right? I don't know how many you got. You have 2 owls in the state. You have the Wampus Cats out of Leesville.
I think that's a cake.
That's a great one, man.
Yeah,
I love that one. But there's
the Ron Eagles. The Ron
Eagles. That's
right. There's only a handful of truly unique nicknames in the state. We're gonna play this game next week. We're gonna come back.
I'll throw my hand at Hawks. I don't know how many Hawks. Hawks seems like they would be more popular than what it is, but I haven't run across many, especially with the colors and uniform combinations that we can put together. Just throwing it out there. Just throwing it out there.
Oh, but, wait! Loyola Prep Flyers, though, right?
Yeah, the Flyers.
They got Snoopy on their helmet. The only team in the entire country that had a helmet designed by Charles Schultz. It's
no, they do have that.
They have Snoopy with his little fighter jet. It's awesome. I love the look. It's solid.
But the one thing they have working against them, they have baby blue in their color scheme.
There you go.
Which looks phenomenal, but it's hard. Nope, I'm with you.
They put up 71 points this week, man, and they're undefeated. I don't know how much it's impacted them on the field yet.
I mean, look, Bill Belichick can't even win in baby blue.
That's what I was going to say. That's where I was going. If it doesn't work for him, I don't know who it works for. All right. I guess that we've reached all the end of the line on the games, but that was fun. We appreciate you all that are out there still watching, staying up with us on this Sunday evening. Please, if you like what we do, if you enjoy following us, watching us, please go onto our YouTube channel. You could like and subscribe us there. You could also catch us live each Sunday and Tuesday. If you follow us on X as well, you could also catch us live on BSN. More importantly, we'd be on demand on the SN as well. So please go do that for us. We have a ton of fun doing this. Hopefully you enjoy watching and learn something, whether it be about the football or the color combinations, whatever. But you're going to learn something and have a good time doing it. But that's going to do it for us here at Talking Ball on this Sunday evening. This coming Tuesday, we will be live at 8:05, where we will preview already week 6 in the Louisiana high school football season. So we will see y'all then. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for watching. We will see y'all on Tuesday.